In this episode of Inside Arts of Fishing, I've come down to the south coast of Cornwall to meet with our good friend Tim Howe, who's going to show us how to fish these sort of deep water rock marks. It's a sort of place where it sort of takes me right back to my childhood, really, fishing sort of floats and ragworm for wrasse and things like that, little metal jigs and things for pollock. And Tim's doing things a little bit differently. This sort of fishing, it can be so varied, and that's what I think this session's hopefully going to be about, where almost anything could happen. Well, to be honest, we've been setting up the camera. Tim's had a little bass and a mackerel already, so a pollock, sorry. So we're looking good, hopefully, for a few fish. We'll see what happens anyway. But let's go and say hello to him and see what's going on. So Tim, I'm genuinely excited about this one today because it feels like an absolute chance to come and catch some fish, because we've already had a couple, so we know we're there. We've seen pollock jumping out of the water, things like that, loads of bait fish around as well.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think it's going to go? I mean, like I said, hopefully we're going to have a few, but how do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, mate. As you said, when we got down here, realised the whole water is thick with little sand eel, about 5-6 centimetres. We've got a big tide today, so there should be a lot of current running past the mark. And yeah, as you say, we've already had a couple of fish out, so I imagine as the tide picks up, the sport's just going to get better and better, basically. So
I think the nice thing, again, like we spoke about earlier, is that with this sort of fishing, we kind of don't know what we're going to catch, do we, necessarily? I think around here, for example, I think we're sort of looking at potentially mackerel, pollock and bass and wrasse as well, even as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I'd like to come down here and ideally not really know what I'm targeting. Depending on the day, you'll get more of each species, but yeah, those are the main four. Obviously, you get the odd wild card, but that's the main sort of bread and butter of it. This time of year, we're quite early on in the season, so I'm expecting more pollock and wrasse and fewer bass, but we actually had one out already, of course. So
yeah,
there was a bass took straight away, so
and, I mean,
you never know.
I suppose we'll get more into tackling things like that later, but in terms of lures and things like that, we've spoken previously about the fact that you're using a lot of soft plastics for this sort of stuff, whereas my history with this sort of thing may be totally different. So it's exciting for me to see how you're doing it down here, really.
Yeah, I mean, I use a lot of sand eel imitation soft plastics with a head on, Westin Sandy Andy, that kind of thing. Simply because it's really agnostic to what fish you're going to catch. You can use them in a lot of different ways. So, like you, I love metals, right? That's another big area that I use, use a lot of seekers and slow falling jigs and things like that. But yeah, this is my sort of go-to. If I don't know what's out there, I just want to catch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
then you only have to take one type of lure with you.
I know, it makes it nice, doesn't it? Yeah. So, like you say, it's a very generic sort of lure in so many respects, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'd use it in so many other scenarios as well, obviously, but
yeah,
these fish love sand eels, don't they? So
it's almost the kind of traditional lure off a rock mark, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sand eel imitation, goes back to the red gill days and so on. So
let's give it a go, shall we? Like I say, I'm super keen because it just looks so fishy. So
let's get on it.
Give it
yeah,
give it
let's have it.
I don't mind confessing that you've been hammering me, haven't you? So,
well,
it's good in a way. I'm actually quite happy about it because genuinely I have obviously questions to ask because I've been sort of watching a bit of what you're doing my own little thing as well, almost intentionally. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's brilliant. I just been staying out of the way a little bit and just sort of watching what you're doing and just noticing obviously the difference between our catches more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, like I say, my head's full of questions in fairness. I'll try not to be here all night, but I mean, to start, I suppose, with lure size. I mean, I've wondered whether I've had actually something a bit big on initially, but what are your thoughts on size and profile?
Where I can see the bait, I love to match the hand. Right now, in front of us, we can see an awful lot of small sand eel. So a smaller pattern lure, the same sort of profile as a sand eel. It's definitely where I would start.
Yeah.
That said, there's probably a lot of fish deep down. We've got a reasonable amount of tide going, and actually with the smaller lure it is a little bit more of a challenge to get down.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's usually when there's a couple of you fish in, it's good to mix it up a bit, try different things. But yeah, in this case, I was thinking, well, there's a lot of small eel in the water, so probably they're quite zoned in on small eels. If you're having trouble hooking up, because it's possible that there's so many eel in front of us that maybe they're kind of a bit inured to those. A couple of things I try. One is I like to work the lure very slowly when there's a lot of bait about. I like to sort of go more down the angle of it, imitating a dying bait fish. And then the other thing is maybe you can try just an outsized fish, try one that looks more like a lance kind of size.
Yeah, right, yeah. I mean, I've been wondering obviously about retrieves, because just watching what you're doing a little bit, I feel like I've probably been a bit more aggressive on the whole. We're actually interesting, you've been quite sort of, like you say, slow and steady, really.
Slow, yeah.
I think just because my experience in the past of, not this specifically, this type of fishing, but I've done a lot in the past of sort of just fishing off of the boat, for example, relatively close to shore, just like this, but almost in reverse.
Almost like traction fishing.
Yeah, exactly. And you're sort of up and down, and it's very productive, but actually doesn't necessarily seem to be doing the job for us today, I don't think. So it's interesting watching you retrieve.
I do a few different things. I think right now, because we've got a lot of tide going and I've got a small lure, that makes me go slower anyway. But also I found there's a couple of different approaches to retrieving a lure. There's obviously you've got the straight retrieve, which is actually very deadly, and actually that I tend to do quite slowly, just kind of I guess a turn every second.
Yeah, I'd say roughly like that, I think.
Yeah, I when I'm doing a straight retrieve, I'm thinking of an unpressured bait fish, so I'm trying to ideally just kind of retrieve with or across the tide and just kind of slow. The other sort of thing is just a lot of pollock like to hit on the drop. And there is a little technique.
That's why I've always thought and preferred this traction sort of style in a way, where you're lifting and dropping it.
So you're dropping it and then you pick it up and then you drop it again.
Yeah.
The other thing that you find is that you can just catch a fish by just literally casting out and falling it through the water. Now there's two ways to drop a lure through the water. One is the kind of classic, keep your line tight to it, and that's a curved fall. So if you imagine the tip of your rod is like a fulcrum and the line is kind of swinging, so it's coming down, but it's also coming towards you. Now, it turns out that pollock aren't a big fan of that. So that bass are perfectly happy to take that, wrasse are happy to take it, mackerel will. Pollock tend to prefer the lure to fall completely straight. To do that, you have to kind of take your bail arm off and sort of, in a very controlled way, let out line and just kind of try and keep it semi-tight.
Yeah.
And you're sort of just letting it fall through the water until it hits the deck.
Gotcha.
And obviously when it goes fully slack, you've hit the deck and then you have to kind of whip it up to try and avoid getting stuck on the
Have you had fish doing both today, or is it mostly
both methods, yeah. But a lot of it's been on this kind of, just the other thing is on the deck you've got your wrasse and sometimes the bass, so there you kind of want to hop it. It's almost as if you were wrasse fishing with a Texas rig. Right? You're trying to feel the boulders and just hop it over the top of them.
I meant to ask you about leaders as well, Tim, because I was worried a bit earlier on that maybe just one of the reasons could have been that why I wasn't catching might be just I've got a bit of a thick leader on. What are you using, and sort of how long is the one that you use, and what's the diameter like?
Yeah, so I like a leader to be outside the guides, the leader knot. Even though I'm using an FG, I just one less thing to worry about. So I only have 2 to 3 foot, generally on the 3 foot size, I suppose, of generally a 20-pound fluorocarbon.
That's what I want as well, to be honest. So I did wonder whether I was, like I say, too thick, but maybe not.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you've got quite a lot of rocks here and stuff, so you want something that has a little bit of abrasion resistance.
Yeah.
Sometimes I fish heavier. I'll go to, if I'm focus more on the wrasse and bass, I'll maybe go up to 25 pound
really,
and then conditions like anything.
Yeah. Do you think they're line shy at all, or actually these sort of fish just generally not?
I haven't ever got the inkling that it is. Bass, I suppose, are the ones that are most famous for it.
Yeah.
But you're fishing for pollock in low light levels when you're this kind of close inshore, so
true.
I don't think it's a major factor.
I mean, things like the other thing that I was just wondering about with one of the many things that I could be doing wrong was where in the water column you're kind of finding these fish, because especially with we've been trying to match the hatch, we've been talking about the fact that we're using relatively small lures on the whole. they're not massively heavy, so it is difficult to keep kind of in proper contact with them to really get a good idea as to where they are.
Yeah.
Where do you think you're fishing?
I find a lot of fish are tied to the bottom.
Yeah.
But as you find, I think we've seen today that there's a lot of fish coming up to the surface to smash bait on the surface. And when I see a bust of sand eel coming out of the water, then the fish will be up in the water. And
Yeah.
often you can just pitch to that bust of sand eels and just let the lure fall through, and you often hook up on the way down.
I mean,
So-
obviously, we sort of, this sort of place, we talked about at the start, the fact that you could catch almost anything here in reality, any of the sort of predatory fish.
Yeah.
Where do you find differences when we are catching more of a variety than we are today, when you've got things like the bass and stuff like that involved as well? Are they up or are they down or are they...
Yeah, they can be a
there you
mixture,
go.
but I find the smaller fish tend to be up, the schoolies tend to be up in the water. So
Yeah.
if you're fishing on the surface with a metal or a plastic that you're kind of just keeping high up, often you'll get the smaller fish, and then a heavier shad or something that you're bouncing along the bottom, that'll pick up your wrasse, and sometimes the bigger bass are down there with the wrasse.
Okay, yeah.
Pollock can be a mixture. I tend to find they tend to be mid-water, but maybe towards the lower half of the water column.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, as the line levels drop, more and more fish are coming up in the water generally.
Okay, yeah. You caught loads of pollock today, so what... You've had a relatively easy day by the looks of it from my side of things. If we had struggled, what would you actually have been doing different, do you think? Or what would you have tried?
Well, I mean, you've got a range of different lures you can use on a rock mark like this, and I would often switch up and see what I could find. There's obviously the distance component, so if you get a metal on, you can get a lot more distance, means you can sweep out more of the bay, and it may be that the fish are sort of out further, and then obviously being able to reach them is helpful.
Yeah.
These kind of flat conditions, there's no reason why you couldn't throw a topwater on, to be honest, if you think there might be a bass about.
Yeah.
I haven't had a pollock hit one yet, but I know they do occasionally.
Yeah.
I've had a wrasse hit a topwater.
Amazing. A good one.
And then, yeah, I mean, I'd be looking to obviously vary the lure and the presentation and the pattern and so on, but then also maybe, search the water column, search different distances. Sometimes the fish are in tight, as we've seen today. There's a lot of fish hitting bait right close to the wall. They're obviously using it to thrust the bait against, but then sometimes they'll be right out distance.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, with weight, I know that, we said a second ago, actually, probably just to, like you say, experiment between us and do things differently. I know you said you were going to put on a slightly heavier lure so you can feel the bottom a bit better. Is that going to be your next?
Yeah, well, there I'm maybe thinking that
fish
there we
on.
go, fish. Lovely job.
Nice. That was really close
That was
in as
right
well.
close in, just like we were saying.
Not
And that was
pollock.
quite low down as well,
There we
wasn't it?
Yeah, swing him round. Grab the leader.
Lovely little pollock.
There we go.
Pretty in the evening light, aren't they?
Slimy things they are sometimes, aren't they? Lovely fish, but they are slimy.
Yeah,
There
definitely.
we go. Nice. On straight back. There we go. Oops.
Point out.
There he goes.
Yeah,
It's
So
nice that there's a few fish around today, isn't it?
absolutely.
We could easily have come down and
Indeed.
actually not seen anything, couldn't we? So,
Very heavy on the pollock today.
yeah. Well, I say, get a heavy lure on and see what you can do with that one.
Yeah,
It'd be interesting to see what you can be done, because like I say, I've been struggling to feel the bottom with some of the lighter lures we're using. So yeah, give it a go and see what difference it makes.
Let's see, yeah, absolutely.
How's that heavier lure feeling, Tim?
Honestly, a little bit on the heavy side. It's falling quite rapidly through the water,
Yeah.
which is great if you want to get down, and I can certainly feel every rock and piece of kelp out there. But today, especially as the tide is not running quite as hard as it was before, I'd rather have a slightly looser contact with the bottom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I'll probably size down again.
Back to where you were. What's your general thoughts on weight? Because with tide running, it can obviously vary.
So-
Are you trying to kind of feel the bottom but keep it as light as you can?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I am exploring different depths in the water column, but it is nice to be able to have enough tension on there that you can sort of feel it fall through the water, and then you can get to the deck and you know you're on the deck.
Yeah.
Especially, as I was showing you earlier, the straight fall technique, it's useful to know where the bottom is.
Absolutely, yeah.
If the tide is running too hard and your lure's too small, or too light, then you can quite easily
I definitely
not really know where you are.
Definitely felt that earlier, kind of not really knowing exactly where I was. As soon as you've got obviously the tide picking up a bit of a bow in your line, even a bit of a breeze as well, then it's just so difficult, isn't it? So
yeah, I think if you took size out of the equation, then you want enough weight to just get you to the deck, and you can still feel what's going on.
yeah, that makes sense.
There, for example, I hung the deck.
Well, we've got lucky. It's a lovely evening for it, isn't it? So
Oh, it's lovely. Yeah, couldn't beat it. But then the other thing, I suppose, is if you're deliberately trying to hop it along the deck, then you want to overweight a little bit so that you can really get in each gully and boulder. So it's as much as anything trying to judge where you're trying to present the bait. If you want it to be gradually falling through the water, go lighter, and if you want to really hug the deck, then.
And I guess every day is a bit different, or do you think?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you find any patterns actually with, like, let's say you had a spring tide? Do you find that you catch more on a spring tide than you would doing a certain?
I find the more current there is, the more pollock I'll get and the more bass I'll get. The wrasse don't really care too much.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd say you get maybe slightly fewer windows of feeding from the wrasse on a spring tide, but
I think the thing with this sort of fishing is there's so much water. Like it's not like some of the bass fishing we do where you're on the coast and you.
In the skin.
My experience around the north coast, let's say, we're sort of looking for waves and depth more than anything, perhaps. When it's just flat and deep, you don't know. I don't know where to go, so that's the difference, really.
Yeah. The other thing you can do, obviously, if you've got a heavier lure on, as you're bringing it in, you can feel the deck, so you can be like, okay, there's a reef out there. It's shallower because I hit the bottom quicker, and then you find there's maybe a gully where, as you're bringing it back in, you'll feel it goes down further.
Just building a mental picture, really.
Exactly. It's that thing of using your line. It's what we've got. We're lucky as lure anglers. We get to do this. You know, we're effectively plumbing the whole swim out and working out what the depths are. And you're feeling exactly. You can feel the texture underneath.
Yeah.
You can tell whether you're on sand or on kelp or rock.
Yeah. Just got to use your brain a bit then to try and imagine what's actually going on there.
Yeah, and you do learn, and especially, I mean, one thing people often moan about with this kind of fishing is snagging up and losing lures. You do it until you don't, you know. Like
I've said that in the shop over the years loads of times actually, because I think especially when people first get into lure fishing, I think they always I'll warn them they're going to lose loads of gear to start with.
Yeah.
When you get to know what you're doing a little bit, you get to know the area you're fishing a little bit, then it gets so much easier, obviously.
It does, yeah. You lose far fewer lures. And, you know, there'll be a spot, there's often a spot on every mark you fish where it's like, if you cast over there, you're going to lose your gear.
It's also where the fish are quite often, though, isn't it? So.
Sometimes, yeah, it can be a problem like that. And that was a hit.
There's still a few fish around, aren't there?
Yeah.
That's been fun, isn't it? We had a good day, actually, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a blinder. It's a fish.
Well and truly hammered me, didn't you, really?
Well, I don't know. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? It's having the right approach on the day.
No,
the right approach changes from day to day. So.
I'm happy about it. It's not always perhaps a common thing to admit into the fact that I actually really enjoy being trounced, but it was really interesting seeing how much of a difference it can make between doing it perhaps slightly wrong like I've been and obviously what you've been doing, which is obviously a bit more dialed in.
Yeah, though you did have the biggest fish, of course.
Of course, don't forget. That's been amazing. It's gone really quietly, actually, the last half an hour or so.
It has.
The light started to dip a bit. The tide's obviously disappeared as well.
I think it's that latter factor. I think the tide is just slowing down. And obviously today we've had a bit of a funny one. It's been nearly all pollock apart from a couple of macs and bass earlier on.
Yeah.
And the pollock do like a bit of tide run. And although this is a perfect time of day for catching pollock, bass, mackerel, all sorts of things. But I think maybe if we'd had the tide strengthening into darkness, we'd have had an absolute blinder. But, you know, you have to make of the conditions what you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, like I said, it's been brilliant anyway. Like I said, we were lucky to catch for so long and so many fish that.
Indeed, yeah.
At least then.
Don't feel quite so bad when it goes off the ball then.
Yeah. So
kind of need to be getting back up the cliff anyway. What you say?
we should go, shouldn't we? Really,
Yeah.
just to be safe.
Just for safety's sake, get the old head torches on.
One more cast, but
Why not?
in a minute.